Okay. Sir, permission to start, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Principals of the schools, teachers, participants, dignitaries who have joined us as panelists today. We have a very interesting session today on digital transformation due to emerging technologies. Today, technology has got into all parts of our lives. No matter what we do, technology has changed everything. Whether we travel, whether we teach, whether we learn, how we communicate, technology has infiltrated everywhere. So digital transformation has taken place. Pandemic has accelerated all this inclusion of technology. It has disrupted. So what is going to happen? What's the future like? Cloud computing, data analytics, coding, lot of things, lot of interesting things coming up, big jargons to understand. So we have people from all walks of life here with us. But let me take this opportunity to first of all welcome the man behind all the changes that you are seeing in the education system, the man of the hour, Shri Manoj Ahuja ji, Chairman CBSE. He's IAS from the IAS and is heading the organization that is bringing dynamic changes in the world of education. So with this, I would like to welcome Honorable Chairman, sir, Shri Manoj Ahuja ji. Sir.
So thank you, RP, and let me welcome Vipin Kumar, Joint Secretary at the Ministry of Education, who's here with us. My colleagues, Dr. Saha, Dr. Jori, and others from CBSE, our panel of eminent speakers will be giving their thoughts on emerging technologies, and the principals and teachers from various CBSE institutions. As you are aware, this webinar is a part of a series of webinars CBSE is organizing pursuant to the Prime Minister's talk on completion of 1 year of the National Education Policy. All of us are aware that the National Education Policy marks a paradigm shift in terms of presenting a future direction for our education sector. And I think a lot of emphasis in the document is laid on new technologies. All of us are aware of the term fourth industrial revolution, which is generally associated with the revolution, yes, which means a sudden cataclysmic drastic change, and they call it an industrial revolution because it's the last revolution was an industrial revolution, so called. But this one is technically not an industrial revolution, more a digital revolution, and generally associated with a lot of these technologies, primarily one being artificial intelligence, big data, IoT, blockchain, or 3D. And underlying a lot of these new developments is the rapid increase in huge computing and processing power. Now, what this does mean is that since we are talking about education and preparing for the future, we need to understand what the future is. And since these very technologies are redefining what the future is, it's very important to reason out what these technologies are and what kind of a future will these technologies shape. What does it mean for education? What does it mean for new skills? What does it mean for a human being, so that what skills or competencies does he need so that he can live a fulfilled life? And with any change, it's very difficult to predict exactly what is going to happen. But through a reasoned debate, through consultations, we can have a fair idea of what the possibility will be in the future. And I think the primary emphasis of CBSE has been in terms of introducing these technologies as a part of the school system. And I'm very happy to know with some of our partners who are present there, and they'll be talking about it. CBSE as a board has been one of the pioneering boards in terms of introducing these technologies. Artificial intelligence was introduced 2 years back, and they say for the standard 6th to 8th, we've also introduced coding, data sciences, and similarly blockchain and other technologies would be rolled out. But that is one part where students and the schooling system understands these technologies. And second would be what possibilities are there? How do students prepare for that future? Which means bringing about a change in our entire pedagogy in terms of the objectives we have, in terms of what is going to, how do we ensure that children are well equipped for 21st century skills? And the third is the, let's say, the instrumental benefit from these technologies, which could be something like personalized learning. It allows you to do that. In a class, children can learn at their own speed, can have concepts which are mapped, and therefore, be helped in their learning through, let's say, AI and through digital technology. Learn at their own level, learn at their own pace, go ahead at their own pace, which is very, very important. It can allow, AI can help us in assessment. Blockchain, it can help us in keeping our certificates in a very secure manner. And I'm being slightly, disclosing information to you. Dr. Johri is there. We've already put last year's entire results on a blockchain. And we will put this year's CBSE results also on a blockchain, and probably within a week or 10 days, make it public, which is the use of this technology. So I think both these areas, understanding what these technologies are, and also how well they can be used in improving our education system, besides understanding what skill sets and competencies students in our schooling system would require for the future, are all important areas which are still open. Debates are going on. All of us need to have a shared understanding of what it means and works towards that. And one small example, is very recently with Intel, the Honorable Prime Minister did launch AI for all. What we feel is that a basic understanding of AI is important for every citizen in the country, and that was one of the objective which moves in the direction of having a shared understanding of these. There's a long road we have to traverse. A lot of uncertainties we still need to unravel, but we are committed with our partners and with our schooling system. We are committed to bring, whatever new technologies are there, to in a way demystify them, bring them to a schooling system, let the students learn about it, and as I said, be equipped for the future. So I'm sure this today's webinar would throw up very interesting insights into what is happening and what CBSE is thinking about the future in terms of emerging technologies and how they're going to be introduced in our schooling system. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, for giving these remarks. And I'm sure the expert panelists, starting from Vipin, would be able to give a much more deeper and nuanced understanding of the issues which I just raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the opening remarks and giving us an insight to set the ball rolling for this session. I take this opportunity to welcome Shri Vipin Kumar, sir, who is Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Education. He is an IAS of 1996 batch from Bihar cadre. He is an electronics and communication engineer from MREC in Jaipur. He has attended Making a Public Policy program at Harvard University, USA, Program and Policy Implementation at IPAC, Canada, Cybersecurity, Cybercrime at Gujarat Forensic University, and a course on cyber security at METI. So he's definitely the man to whom we are looking forward to. And he has a lot of experience and handling a different portfolio in the ministry. So we look forward to your address, and I welcome you all from the side of CBSE to this program. Thank you for joining us and sparing time for us, for being here with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manoj Ahuja, sir. And thank you, CBSE team, to invite me for this webinar. So it's my pleasure to be part of this webinar and share my thoughts on digital transformation, which is taking place with the use of new technological innovations, especially in the field of education. As sir already told that we all kept discussing the advancements in the field of technology and its impacts on human life generally in day-to-day interaction before COVID. But this COVID time has made us realize that whether it's a poor or rich student or businessman or any other person, what's the importance of technology? Because I think it's the online things only which have helped us and in fact to survive the humanity during this pandemic time. If I take the example of education sector only, So it was the online classes, the contents which have been developed by institutions, schools, and other stakeholders, in fact, which came to the rescue of the children. And I would like to share with you that it was a comprehensive initiative, PM Vidya, which in fact was launched as a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat program. And it unified all the efforts which are related to digital, online, on-air education to enable coherent multimode access education. I'm not saying that by providing these online contents, e-contents, we all the sections of the society could avail the benefits of these digital initiatives. But surely we have tried to reduce and bridge and support the physical educational losses which have been caused by the COVID. But still a large population is not having the access to the device, and the people who have the devices, they don't have the data. So those issues still exist, but yeah, we were able to face these challenges last 1 year, and we are the only country among very few countries in the world that all the children, no child in the country has suffered loss of education, at least not the year, educational year. In offices also, if we see, the meetings have started taking place on virtual platform, and the office work also has switched over to e-office platform. Many more applications have become a part of life now, which I think that even when COVID is over, they are going to stay undoubtedly. So one of the fastest growing technological additions to the education sector is the artificial intelligence. Manoj Ahuja sir also mentioned in her his words and speech how important it's going to be in days to come. And it is the power of these tools which have been developed using artificial intelligence, machine learning, that now using computer simulation to artificial intelligence, now new ideas are on the way to shape the future of the education. And means I think now anybody in the world can get a formal degree from those renowned institutions which are dream institutions. Now nobody has to miss, one has not to be in person. Nobody is supposed to attend those courses in person. Suppose somebody wants a degree from Stanford or any other university, or means like so they simply have to enroll. Online courses are there, certified courses are there. So these are the power. This is the power of the tools which have been developed over a period of time, and it's a brighter world in which now students, as I told you, instead of enrolling physically in colleges, they subscribe to learn languages in virtual reality with avatars for conversation partners, and they have their questions which are answered day and night. There is no difference now that it's daytime, so you have to attend the classes. It's 24 into 7 the availability. As sir also told that new education policy has acknowledged the importance of emerging tech and the need for preparing students for tech-led future. The policy emphasis is emphasizing on making education more experiential and future-oriented, building critical skills such as data analysis, computational thinking, etc. And it's from the very beginning, means from the very young age, through the teaching of contemporary subjects using latest tech tools. NEP 2020, but at the same time, we say that implementing NEP 2020, so it needs huge investment also for digital infrastructure and for the capacity building of teachers, or the development of online platforms, creation of virtual labs also, the labs also and virtual labs also, the establishment of standards for content, technology pedagogy, the development of digital content, etc., etc. So it mentions the need to have an open, interoperable, evolvable, public digital infrastructure, which we call NDIR in education sector, and it can be used by multiple platforms. So there won't be any difference now. It can be used by states also, by the private people also, by the government also, by the students also, and will give the point solutions to solve the India scale, the problem we are having of, and diversity, the complexity, and the device penetration. in this ever-changing world, which I feel is where the learning needs of the learner and the teachers, they have to keep pace with the time. The role of a diverse ecosystem, as I told you, India, is required, which will be able to deliver relevant and quality services in an agile manner, and it's a necessary condition for growth also. The only way to cater, I feel, to these aspirations is to enable the ecosystem in the widest possible manner to thrive and deliver, so that the policy goals of NEP 2020, which mentions that SDG goal 4.6, we should have 100% literacy in the world and inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning for all. So I think that is possible only by these tools. Here I would like to share something in brief, however, about NDA, which is very, very important part of NEP. Just 4 or 5 slides I have. So just I would like to share in brief. This is the digital infrastructure which can help India be a leader and scholar in education. So I'll share my actually PPT. It's just few slides, just for 5 minutes. Let me see whether I am just sharing. My screen is visible, I suppose.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
It's visible now, sir.
Okay. So this the NDA, it is going to be the driver of digital transformation in education sector. It is going to support the realization of national education policy and SDG 4, because you know that the population, the huge population we have, the resources are limited with us and time is short, target is huge. So it's going to help us. It's going to drive the new value from existing applications. It is going to create digital education ecosystem. There are some gray areas which the ministry and all the stakeholders with the support, we are trying to sort out those issues of idea. It's going to leverage the power of emerging technologies. It will have the elements of digital strategies, so a strategy for education sector. It will, in India, will be establishing a public digital platform for education, and that platform will be open to all. It will be interoperable. It will be evolvable over a period of time, with the help and with the feedback, with support of everybody, whether it's private sector, the civil society, the students, the teacher and states and central government. It will be promoting digital education ecosystem through innovation and partnerships. The vision of NDR is that a globally pioneering effort in education, a unifying national digital infrastructure to energize and catalyze the education ecosystem. It will be a federated, unbundled, interoperable, inclusive, accessible, and evolving. Actually, all these words are having means different concepts and different themes and different ideas behind each and every word, which has been mentioned in this vision of India. It aims to create and deliver diverse, relevant, contextual, innovative solutions that benefit students, teachers, parents, communities, administrators, and it will result in timely implementation of policy goals. So when I say teachers, so it will unlock benefits across all stakeholders. The government can have a data, we can have a data-backed planning and decision making for better resource utilization and simplified service delivery. Today we are having Samak Shiksha, but program, and we get data only from states, and then but you know that using NDR, it is long term, however, but we can have better planning with all the limited resources. Students, they will have personalized and continuous learning pathways and access to all the education services. Teachers also can have career management, adaptive learning pathways. They can collaborate for teaching techniques, because NEP also says that 50 hours CPD, and then need-based teaching modules should be available, online modules should be there. Researchers, they will have easy access to data and simplified data management. Startup industry, when we say collaboration in private sector, it can come out with innovative value-added services through access to data. Institutes, higher education institutes, they can plan information-based decisions, virtual classrooms, because now you have, means like when we say that we have limited resources, so virtual classrooms are going to be a solution, virtual labs also, the resource sharing also we can have with these institutions. So if we say means it will cater to parents, it will cater to community members, it will cater to students, it will cater to teachers, it will cater to administrators, and the five groups you can say. And there are three scenarios: learning, help learn, manage learn. So means somebody can learn also, somebody can help in learning, somebody can manage in learning. And interactions, if we say then there are two platforms, one with learning and administration. So that's all which I want to say for this end year part. Restored my screen. Is it gone? It seems. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, your screen is
So now I
working.
come back to the implementation part of these initiatives. So I'd like to say that even as the government is planning or government is working to build a suitable ecosystem, the rapid pace at which this sector is growing creates many opportunities, in fact, for deployment of emerging technologies, and the pace is only likely to increase over the next few years. Given its impact, coordinated efforts by academic institutions and the technology industry are needed, in fact, to address the gap between the demand and supply, which is huge, obviously. Thus, it's imperative for the key stakeholders and the administrators of the education jurisdictions to keep pace with emerging technologies and their applications to reap the benefits and make digital transformation a reality for all. If I talk in general, means like it was related to education, but in general also across industries and sectors, the emerging technologies have become a strategic imperative for worldwide economic growth and will continue to be so in coming years. The government worldwide working to create comprehensive strategies for a sustainable, inclusive, and positive impact on its citizens, industries, and overall societies. The scale of deployment will necessitate proactive and informed action on the part of government entities and all the key stakeholders and industry partners involved in it. The widespread use of such technologies require establishment of guidelines also, because you know that new partners will be coming, new players will be coming, so we'll have to have guidelines and the framework also that are inclusive in all possible manner. And when I say that there is huge potential, so means this means all the software companies in the world, they are having the offices in India. So we are a country, we are having a huge potential for all these technologies, we are having market also. So the analysts, they have predicted the artificial intelligence capabilities alone can help at least to add around 500 billion and around 20 million jobs to India's economy in next couple of years. And India's own national strategy identified that artificial intelligence as an opportunity and solution provider for inclusive economic growth and social development. I remember that earlier, means like we used to say that the students, they are a student of computer science or they are a student of software computer engineering. But now I think that there's no field where computer science or these technologies are not applicable. So whether it's medical profession, whether it is means industry, whether business or architecture, civil engineering, everywhere this technology is there, and without means it has become means like means it has to be applicable everywhere. So you cannot say that computer software is a separate part. It's not a vertical. Uh, it's critical to empower and equip youth now, hence with the skills and mindset which is required, so that they also can solve the challenges which are thrown by new world economy. This requires government and industry and academia, we as a whole, to work together and support the inclusion and provision of new technologies. In the last, I feel that the students in education sector, because we come from education department, so the students who need the benefit of having diverse subjects at school level, they can reap the benefits only when there is an environment of adaptive learning. Imagine just a class student, class 12th student who wants philosophy, physics, and economics in a normal school scenario. This would rather be impossible. But with a modern learning platform, this could be possible with blended learning. Some courses being offline, online, and some in school. And in new education policy, there is a concept of no hard separation, and no hard separation means that any student can take any subject. The student of civil engineering, he can have a subject, full-fledged subject as music also, but for that we need some innovations and support, some credit transfer policy also. The department is working, but ultimately it is the technology which will be helpful, and we will achieve 100%. We are sure the targets and objective of new education policy using all these advanced and new innovations and advanced technologies, because this is the future, and I'm sure that the student of future will have that liberty and choice also using these innovations. And that's all I would like to share with you at this point of time, and my best wishes. And again, thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words of enlightenment. You very rightly said that the future of education has changed. There are no boundaries of time, there are no boundaries of country. Anybody can learn anytime and anywhere. So this has also increased the opportunities for teachers. This has opened the world of opportunities for skilled workforce and the students who are learning different technology. And this has also, in a way, increased the responsibility of the school boards like us to make sure that the students are exposed to what are emerging technologies, to look beyond what is right there, to look at around 10 years down the line when the children will pass out of the school. So with this, I would like to once again thank you, sir, for your time and kind words. And I would like to welcome the panelists for discussion on the grounds that you have laid down, sir. So I would like to welcome, first of all, Dr. Shweta Khurana, who's Director Asia Pacific and Japan, Government Partnerships and Initiatives with Intel India. Welcome, ma'am. I would like to welcome Ms. Joyita Das, who's Lead Education and Skill Development with IBM. Welcome, ma'am. I would like to welcome Bani Painter, who is Head of Education, India and South Asia, Google Cloud India. Welcome, Bani ji. I would like to welcome Mr. Sandeep Alur, who is Director, Microsoft Technology Center, Microsoft Corporation India. Welcome, Sandeep ji. But I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Dr. Saurabh Thukral ji, who is a Senior Specialist and from Niti Aayog. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And to moderate this panel of literati from education sector, from industry sector, and we have none other than Director Skill Education and Training, Dr. Biswajit Saha. So I hand it over to you, sir, to manage this session. I know it's going to be a very difficult task because you have a lot of panelists who are in the world of digital technologies and have a lot to share with the participants. But I hand it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. R.P. Singh. It's a great moment for all of us. And after listening, Chairman CBSE and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Education, and my colleague from other head of the department from CBSEs are present. And once again, welcome to all the panelists, rather vibrant panelists, both from the industry and government. So without taking much time, because the relevance of these particular sessions is being duly highlighted by both the keynote speaker. So at this point of time, let us listen the perspective of Niti Aayog, what way this EdTech and digital transformation and other way the government think tank is taking or trying to take it forward, and both in the schools cohort as well as in the university cohort. So over to you, Mr. Thukral, is Senior Specialist Niti Aayog. My request to all the panelists is that maybe if you can confine the timing within 7 minutes each, then maybe some time we can keep for discussions. Maybe we are getting some questions from the side of the participant, and we can take up accordingly. Over to you, Saurabh. Please unmute.
Sorry. Thank you, sir. Thank you, CBSE, RP Singh sir, Manoj sir, Vipin sir, for giving Niti Aayog the opportunity to present their view. Let me share my screen. I am Saurabh, Senior Specialist from Niti Aayog. I am working with the technology vertical. So we are working on increasing technology intervention in the education sector, and we want to present the work we have done in this space. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So at Niti Aayog, we are looking at how we can increase technology intervention in education and make sure that technology is accessible to all. So in this, first we have identified what are the challenges of technology intervention, particularly in the school education. So we have identified 4 broad challenges. One is the infrastructure challenges. We know that internet is not available at the school level, electricity is not there, digital devices are not there. These are the building blocks to enable technology, and this is one of the challenges we have identified. The second one which we have identified is the human resource challenges, both from the teacher point of view and from the implementation point of view. Uh, we need to improve the digital literacy of the teachers. We need to also enhance the knowledge of the school administration on the technology and the technology platform. And even from the administration, we want to really demonstrate the capability of the technology and how that can be useful. The third challenge which we have identified is the systematic challenges. And here one is that we need to make sure that the content is available in the vernacular languages. Uh, a lot of pilots related to technology has been done, but the scaling is the issue. We are not able to scale those pilot projects. And then the fourth challenge is the socio-economic challenges, where we want to educate both the parents and the teachers to uh, use technology as a tool, right? There's a lot of research where we have seen that the girl childs are not given access to digital devices, right? We need to also ensure that the devices are being used for the right purpose. So these are the 4 challenges which we have identified. And then we did so this is the ecosystem, right? So this is the ecosystem for the in the EdTech. I will say this because we all are aware of this. We have done the research about how technology has been adopted across the world, right? If we look at China, they had a EdTech policy in 2 parts. In first part, they focused on building the infrastructure, and they spent 10 years to just make sure that the internet and the digital devices are available in the school. Uh, that was the focus on that, and then they focus on the content and other things. Similarly, if we look at Israel, they start with the 5 years plan, where they want to make sure that all the schools are having computers, right? At the same time, the teachers are having the ICT education. So they were looking at how they can bring the digital technology to the school, as well as they wanted to focus on digital literacy. And they are using the emerging technologies like cloud to enable the access. Similarly, Kenya, which we found very, very interesting because we have the similar challenges where they have used the low-tech intervention and they have used the support of the NGOs and the startup to enable access. Uh, this is something we will be talking in the subsequent slides also. Now, overall objective, what is the objective of using technology? So we want to focus on only on two objectives. The first objective is how can we improve access to quality education by using technology? And the second objective is that how can we improve learning outcomes? We want to focus on these two, and all the recommendations which we have are for these two objectives. And we are using the guiding principle of NEP 2020. Let me come to the recommendations. So we have 5 recommendations, and we are happy to debate those. We are happy to add more, but we were able to finalize these 5 thematic areas. I will quickly go through all of these 5 thematic areas one by one. So the first recommendation is how can we use technology to increase the teacher capacity? And based on the research we have done, Tata Trust is doing a lot of work here. Even global universities are doing a lot of work here. This is a very good intervention where the technology is not directed to the student, but technology is being used to increase the teacher capacity to help teachers enhance their course, enhance their learning, enhance their understanding, and they and this can scale easily, right? We know that if teacher has to attend a training, they need to skip their day, they need to travel for long hours, and which is not viable for all the teachers. Now, with technology, the access to education is on the fingertips, right? So, this is one intervention which we feel, uh, and technology with adults is still manageable than technology with children. So this is one intervention where we feel that technology can be a game changer, and we can use this technology as a tool to enhance the teacher's skills in the emerging area of blockchain, AI, AR, VR, IoT. This way, we will be able to enhance their knowledge and we can reach massive scale using technology. And a few of the things we want to highlight here that it needs to be a top-down approach. We need to align with the state school administration, the headmaster, the headministration align. They should be also part of the cohort, and then we should educate teachers. If the ecosystem is there, then this program would be scalable, and and there should be a motivation. So how can we create a mechanism of giving them certificate, giving them digital badges when they are completing courses? All right, so we need to create some, and if we can link to their pay also, that nothing like that, but we need to understand how that will be viable. But we should create some motivations factors for teachers to retrain themselves. Uh, the second one, which we want to talk about, and Vipin sir has also mentioned, is that blended learning, where where it is the best of offline world and the online world. And there can be various different models. Here it can be that we have some good content played in the class, along with there's a teacher in the class to address all the doubts. Or they can be students are having offline classes, but they are giving exams online so that their interaction is being recorded, and based on their performance in the class, in the exam, recommendations are given to them, right? So there are multiple models in the blended learning space, and this is something which is viable, feasible, and desirable. Uh, the cost to implement this is not very, very high. We need to have one projector in each classroom, and we need to focus on the content. Once the content is there, it can be replicated everywhere. And we can have the best world-class content which will be played digitally, and there will be teacher in the class to address all the doubts. And this can make the classroom environment very, very interesting, right? We can play some videos to ensure that students are motivated. We can use different mechanisms to explain them some tough subjects, right? So we can make class very, very interesting if we can use the online content, use some good creative videos, and we can even have some guest lectures from the industry experts to really motivate them. I remember my school days, the college days, when we used to have some guest lectures from the expert. That day we used to have 100% attendance. We came to the class just to attend that session. So with this, we can make a classroom very, very interesting. The third one is how we can use technology and enable personalized learning. This is the high-tech intervention, and uh, this is something we would have to really think how this get implemented on the ground. Sir, Vipin sir has suggested few good solutions here. At the same time, this will make this is essential in India because it will help us to improve the learning outcomes, because we know that it is not one size fit all, and there are different ways of student to learn, and they have the different cycles also, right? Somebody different approaches. Somebody like story learns through stories. Somebody learns through games. Somebody learns through the traditional method, and uh, this with personalized learning this can happen. So one of the recommendation here is that how can we enable personalized learning within the Diksha platform. uh, we have some open source tools which can get integrated to that platform and enable personalized learning. And then how can the student performance in the exam is captured digitally, so that recommendation can be given to them on the courses they have to attend and their weak areas, the area of improvement. So if we can focus on this and try to see how this can implemented for the different learning styles of the student, it can be a game changer. The fourth one is about how can we use low tech intervention, and this was also highlighted in NEP 2020 that for early childhood care and education, the parents and the guardian needs to play a very important role. So here we don't want to focus on the students, we want to focus on the guardians and the parents. They will be using technology, they will be getting IVR's call, they would be getting WhatsApp messages, right? And then uh, they will be, and then they will be using that to guide their children. Now, this way we have done some research. We have those education not-for-profit organization who is working in Delhi and UP, and uh, the impact is very, very good with these interventions. The good thing is that these are easy to implement, low cost intervention, but the impact is very, very high. If you look at the change in the standard deviation, it is very, very high, and also in line with the NEP principles. The final intervention is also one something which was mentioned in NEP, that how can we have clusters of schools? We will have all the schools in one locality, and we will create a cluster, and common resources can be used across. With technology, instead of having physical clusters, how can we have virtual clusters? That was our thought process here. And something and how we can use technology for career counseling, for adult education, sex education, uh, health education, right? It is very, very difficult for any school to afford a career counselor, full-time career counselor. Now, if we want to use that on a per class basis using technology, the career counselor doesn't need to travel to school. They can connect with the student using technology. And this has been proven abroad globally. There are many case studies where in Colombia where they have used technology for sex education, and they have seen a very, very positive impact. So here the thought process was that instead of focusing on physical clusters, let's use technology to build virtual clusters of school and use the common resources which are very, very difficult for one school to afford. Then we can use them across multiple schools so that these are Bibles. So these are the 5 main broad themes which we have identified, which are very something which can be implemented on the ground in the current environment, and something which is viable, desirable, and feasible. That was the objective, and all these 5 will help us improve access to education and will improve our learning outcomes. With that, I will end. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Saurabh-ji. I think you have highlighted the relevant point, and especially the last point is very much interesting, how we can really come up with the virtual cluster model to gear up more digital transformation. And we also understood what way government is planning to create suitable ecosystems for digital transformation. As a developing nation, India is currently undergoing a transformation to become the hub of emerging technologies. Be it AI, cloud, IoT, blockchain, in every sphere, I think some way analysis are going on how we can enhance the AI capabilities, and over $500 billion economy is going to be there, and more than 20 million jobs would be created, especially in this particular sector. Intel has already partnered with CBSE, leading this AI education in a mission mode. Now, what way, I'm coming back to Shweta Khurana, what way Intel envision that the use of AI in education? Can you quickly elaborate? Or not only AI, you don't limit yourself to AI, maybe other emerging technology also you can add. Over to you, Shweta.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Saha. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you. I just want to start by saying, and I think Manoj Ahuja ji kind of spoke about it, that how the current pandemic is really demanding a new way of thinking for economic recovery and revitalization. Now, increase in digitalization across industries, public sector, that has created an urgent need to address the digital skills crisis. And that is the stark gap which we see between the new age jobs and the required skill levels of the future workforce to fill those jobs. So the digital skills crisis is something which is very close to our heart. That's the area we've been working in collaboration with CBSE Ministry of Education, and in fact, even with National E-Governance Division, Ministry of IT as well. We are seeing a massive disruption across work tasks, workforce, and even workplace today. When I talk about work tasks, there are enough studies. In fact, McKinsey has come up with the figure that almost 50% of the work tasks can get automated. Similarly, when we come to workforce, we talk about 85 million jobs, which may get displaced, but then there's also a 97 million job growth which can get generated. But all those are on the new emerging technology areas. And workplace is getting disrupted because it's expanding. We are all doing remote work today, which we could never even imagine 1.5 years ago. We are working from home, we are studying from home, and so much so our recreation is also sitting right at home. So Intel's response to Drive Digital Readiness Programs, or Intel Digital Readiness Programs as we call it, is in partnership and collaboration with government, academia, civil society as a shared value initiative. The model of digital readiness, which we recommend, is typically the ability to learn new skills in emerging technologies. And as you rightly said, it can be artificial intelligence, it can be IoT, it can be blockchain, any of the new age technologies. But more importantly, build a trust on those emerging technologies and the ability to use them responsibly. And then build abilities to create those impactful solutions which maximize socioeconomic benefits. Now, to support this, we've gone ahead and committed to collaborate with 30 country governments, enabling 30,000 institutions and empowering 30 million people by 2030 to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. AI in education for us means creating the ability to truly democratize AI and make the learning very simple, easy, fun to use, so that it can be delivered in a very inclusive manner. And I can share some examples with all of you. We've already skilled more than 5,000 schools and approximately 15,000 students who were formally assessed on artificial intelligence as a subject in class 10th this year, thanks to CBSE. But besides the AI for Youth program, we also have the Responsible AI for Youth program, which saw participation from 50,000 students across state government schools, which was absolutely phenomenal and, to be very honest, unexpected. But then these are just numbers. So what is important for us is the human behind these numbers, or if I may say so, the human intelligence behind these numbers. To answer the question, if I would really call AI in education successful today, is when I see examples on the ground and a 16-year-old girl in class 10th from a government-aided school aspires to become an AI ethics lawyer. She and her friends created an algorithm called Happiness Guru to detect the onset of depression amongst peers. That is a fantastic example to talk about that, yes, AI as a subject, AI in education is successful. Or a Hindi teacher will use an AI tool like data analysis in class 7th to teach Hum Panchi Unmukt Gagan Ke. Or a social studies teacher in class 9th uses the AI project cycle and decision tree model in her lesson plan on poverty. Or a science teacher in class 9th uses unsupervised learning to teach sound. These are the fantastic examples which say that yes, AI in education in India is successful. And I'm very proud to share that. And we've been talking about this, that India is perhaps one of the first countries to really introduce AI as a subject. And now so many other countries have followed suit. So I would, in fact, even call AI in education more successful when we see 6 technology patents applied for the AI projects which have been created by students themselves in schools, which is, again, a fantastic example. And all these examples are available and accessible both on the CBSE academic website and in the lesson plans which are uploaded on Diksha. To us, a very robust community of practice, which is like driven again in collaboration with CBSE, has more than 20,000 students across 23 countries. Now, these students, they are discussing artificial intelligence, they are contributing stories, news, projects, even memes on artificial intelligence on a daily basis. And being a part of the digital readiness program, it kind of enables them not just to gain the technology skills, but also the social skills like AI ethics, bias reduction, solution building, etc., which are typically the new age skills which are required for success. Now, of course, our vision is to create world-changing technologies which enriches the life of every person on earth. But and the most important reason, this was the most important reason why Ministry of Education, CBSE and Intel launched AI for All. AI for All is perhaps one of the world's largest AI initiative for public awareness. It's available in 11 languages, very easy to work through. So we are thinking about education technology using emerging technologies as opportunities of a very different magnitude, and partnering together, working together with governments, communities. What we really want to do is build a digital first mindset and expand access to AI skills in a very inclusive manner. That to us would be the success of AI in education. I hope that answers what you asked me, Dr. Saha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. And I think let me also echo to the participant, our school leader and teachers especially, to spread the message of AI for all and also to participate AI for community. And maybe very soon we are also coming with AI for teachers. So all those multidisciplinary approach, and I think at this point of time is very much crucial to understand and learn through our official platforms. So, and also this is readily available in Diksha. At this point, thank you, Shweta. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Sandeep Alur, who is Director, Microsoft Technology Center, Bangalore. At this point of time, I think somewhere, one way national education policy also mandated that how we can integrate new technology. So one way technology transformation and other way use of technology as a curriculum. Now, at this point of time, access to technology-led education is still in nascent state, because both CBSE academic unit has made a survey and how our schools are functionally using technology to cover the day-to-day transaction. Even out of our 24,000 schools, a substantial number is still facing some trouble due to bandwidth, due to other technology challenges. Now, that's why I'm telling it is still in nascent stage. What may be the tripping point to change this? And how can we prepare the education system and its key stakeholder for this change? I think you can highlight your views. And as with Microsoft, we also launched this coding and data science curriculum, again a part of the mission. But these issues we want to hear from you, so that our principal and teacher were facing this kind of issue and also thinking to merge themselves with the flow of technology transformation. Over to you, Sandeep.
Wonderful. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. Truly privileged to be part of this panel today. And Dr. Saha, thanks for the question. In fact, while, for example, Shweta spoke about curriculum and content in education, but let me focus on the transformation leveraging emerging tech. I think that's probably is essential. Your question is, how do we do this? End of the day, in my personal opinion, there needs to be a radical shift in terms of how education is being administered today, right? For example, if you talk about a three-phased approach, this is something true with every industry. We talk about respond to the current requirement, you recover and reimagine the systems. Now, we are in the reimagination phase, honestly, because every single industry is being reimagined, and education is one sector probably that needs massive infusion of technology, right? While we've heard of future classrooms, right? This is the term that we always heard in the context of in future, in the next decade, we'll see future classrooms where children, students and teachers can collaborate, learn, and that amplifies learning outcomes, right? In fact, when we heard Dr. Saurabh, we spoke about access to quality education and amplifying learning outcome. These two agendas, right? I think that's probably time has come for us to look at that. Now, of course, now the pandemic has done a complete reset in the overall education system. Digital divide is very, very evident. It's visible to all of us. But the situation has also created inequity in how students are getting educated, right? If you look at key trends, of course, in AI, etc., exists, but the future where as a country, if you look at giving access to quality education, helping students learn the most effective way, I think the time has come for us to bring in this concept of metaverse, right? Metaverse as a concept is, it talks about a virtual shared environment where all of us can socialize, we can work, we can play, right? I mean, that's the need of that. In fact, today with students working from home, the social, I would say social equity is a big question mark, right? So in terms of emerging tech influencing education industry, number one, classrooms of the future. I think on the ground, the physical setup needs a revamp for sure. In terms of, today we talk about AI, computer vision, but if you looking at safety, well-being, or behavioral analysis of children, right? I mean, that's absolutely possible on the ground using power of technology. Second, today virtual, right? I mean, where students and teachers are able to interact and collaborate, but how does that help amplify one's, I would say, ability to understand better and learn faster? I mean, that's where the social capital amplification and use of technology here. Today we talk about cameras being switched on so that teachers can see students. Now, can we look at augmented reality or a virtual reality environment where teachers and students can collaborate, right? Today we have, if you look at, there is this company called AltSpace VR. As though, when I wear a headgear, it's as if I am attending a school with my fellow students being visible to me in the virtual world, right? I think that's the world we are walking into. That's the world which probably every student aspires today, because the very social capital is in a question mark, right? Now, while I say this in terms of a future way of learning, future classrooms, etc., of course, the choice is given to students also, right? If you want to come to classroom, this is what you will, this is the environment you will learn. If you have issues in terms of coming to classroom, of course, because of current times, then this is the environment you will learn. It should be equitable, right? There should not be any inequity in terms of how students learn going forward. That's where technology will come in handy for sure. Of course, we talk about assistive technologies, right? Today, I look up to a teacher to educate me, clarify questions to me, and also help me learn better. Can there be a digital equivalent of a teacher where I interact with the digital assistant 24/7 in terms of getting questions clarified, asking questions, and I am not limited by the time I get from a teacher, right? That also amplifies learning. Now, finally, I want to probably touch upon accessibility.
One country, one area, one school across the country, across the world. I think what is coming out lovely is, as a nation, as a community, there are lots of problem solvers. The curriculum is coming up on, especially on the emerging technologies, coming up to address some of those. Whether it is through capstone projects or challenges or hackathons, students are learning. Whether it is through 20 minutes nuggets on WhatsApp content, students are still learning. They still want to aspire to come and become one of the first entry-level job aspirants, or they want to apply for some of those jobs in maybe a Microsoft, Intel, or an IBM, or any other company today. And which is a great aspiration as well as inspiration, right from the focus which NEP talks about. It talks about a lot of innovation, getting all that mindset and a culture of problem solving. I think as a nation, as an organization, CBSE has always really brought that to us as an example in the country, whether it was in the introduction of artificial intelligence or even in future introduction of other technologies. So I would say, Dr. Shah, yes, that's a big norm. We are definitely going to focus on high school innovation to workforce. That journey has to be extremely, extremely curated in the digital world. And of course, with all this learning, for whether it's for the students or teachers, and of course NEP puts that big focus of 50 hours of learning. But finally, we are talking of skilling or upskilling for the youth, whether they want to get into a job in a corporate or startup, do an entrepreneurship sort of a startup sort of a model that they need to get into and generate more employment, because that's something that everybody, unless the school, the industry partner, the government puts that on the table, that finally the goal is the learning outcome, and then the learning outcomes lead to this, whether it's job or entrepreneurship. That's something that we all need to really be very mindful about. So industry, to wrap up, industry relevant content, extremely important. I think Saurav from Niti Aayog talked about the importance of scale, whether it is a district level school or a village level entrepreneur level skill center, or any private school in the world. We need to be connected. And through industry relevant workplace skills, whether it's internship, virtual or otherwise, or whatever that may be, workplace skills, so that this whole journey from high school to workplace becomes much easier for students, and not have this life cycle of a job seeker from a student level, maybe be a decade or so, right? So that's something that we need to all address collectively. Dr. Shah?
Thank you, Jayita. I think most of the point you have covered are highly relevant. And with the unique strength of the talent, technology, and data availability, and potential for population scale adoptions of emerging tech, India has tremendous opportunity to lead human-centric application and democratize access to technology. Now, that way, our global player, Google representative, Bunny, is present here. So, Bunny, my question to you, how can our school leader and teachers can really look into the career pathway. One way, of course, Saurabh has pointed out that career counseling and other issue. Let me also inform our community and also the panelists that CBSE along with the UNICEF already launched a career portal which is very much there at cbsc.nic.in. Through that, our teachers, students, parents can look into the bouquet of career, including this digital space. But we would like to understand what way the tech companies are visualizing for the future workforce, so that by name of digital transformation, we can also inform the teachers, yes, these are the 21st century skills we expect from the school pass out, both for blue collar job or when they land up after their professional course completion. Over to you, Bani. And also, I'd like to request you, if you can put some light on the uses of technology in digital assessment, if it is possible. Bani, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening to you all. My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Very, very insightful conversations already. So Dr. Saha, to address your question, I'd like to go back to a very simple concept that we are all experiencing. I think, commendable that Indian teachers, Indian students, Indian policymakers, Indian education ecosystem came together like we did during the time of the pandemic. And obviously the uncertainty continues, but one thing that we are learning, which is a great strength for us, is that collectively we were able to support learning for our students, whatever age group they might have been in. And more importantly, we adopted and adapted to technology in a very unique and fundamental way. And that itself is commendable, because if you think about it, we are actually talking about, the future of computing happening 5 years early. We obviously hadn't thought of this unprecedented time. We hadn't really thought that our lives would change so dramatically, that each one of us will be locked up in our homes and will continue to either learn or work or just meet socially using video conferencing. So, and today we are at a webinar as well, where, ideally we've been all together having that, interaction and conversation. So I think Olympic gold for the teachers and students of India, and there should be celebration that, we've all achieved this together. Having said that, coming to what we need to do and consolidate what we've already been able to achieve in this time. On skilling, my view would be that